out there, I really do apologize if at any time within the video you do hear cars, making a noise. It seems the people who live opposite me have gotten new cars or something, but they've just been making a noise throughout this video. So if you do hear that, I really do apologize, and I hope you enjoy the video. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Baki Sekhale and I am back with yet another true crime case. I know I've been MIA for like some time. There's just been so much going on with like school and life and literally everything else. But let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. So today we're going to jump right into the Miya Marcano case. Miya was born on the 26th of April in the year 2002 to parents Marlon Marcano, who was known to be a famous DJ, and her mother, who goes by the name of Miya Marcano. I hope I'm saying that right. And Miya is from Florida. Now, for high school, Miya was known to have attended Charles W. Flanagan High School, and she would participate in like school carnivals. She was very involved. She was known to be very, confident. She was full of light, a very, very, very beautiful and intelligent young girl. Now, Miya had an older brother who went by the name of Marlon Jr. And although Miya's parents were no longer together, the siblings really did grow up with a very, very, very strong, support structure, together with Miya's stepmother, who goes by the name of Giselle. I think Miya's parents always just made sure that they have a very, very strong co-parenting system, and so they grew up in a very, very supportive family. Now, Miya had graduated in May 2020, and as we know, at this point in time, COVID had gotten into full swing. So this for her was a very disappointing way to end or to have her final senior year, because things like prom was cancelled, final classes were cancelled, any graduation celebrations or parties also couldn't take place. So for her, this was a very, I guess no one would actually really want to end their final year during COVID. Now, later in that year, Miya started her university years and she went on to attend at the University of Central Florida. However, as time went on, she then transferred to Valencia College, and this all happened within her first year. Now, Miya was busy with an arts degree. However, she did consider going into sports medical or even physiotherapy. Now, in order to make financial ends meet, Miya then decided to get a part-time job as a leasing officer at the Arden Villas, which is a student accommodation known as a luxury off-campus apartment, and this was not so far from the University of Central Florida. Now, Miya also did reside at this specific place where it is that she was working part-time, so for her, obviously, it made things a bit easier. However, this place had a lot of mixed reviews. There was just, obviously, every single place has good reviews and bad reviews, but the problem with this one was that the bad reviews were just very bad, and I guess the good reviews were, it's just literally a bag of mixed emotions. Now, some of the perks to the place included a pool, a gym. There was also known to be a bar on campus, as well as allowed pets. However, some of the issues that it is that the place had was from bad parking to bad maintenance, and their rent was also known to be very expensive and sometimes didn't really seem worth staying at the place due to how expensive the rent was. But at this point, Miya was doing very well with juggling her part-time job as well as being a student. Now, Miya would sometimes find herself working very awkward hours, whether this be Friday night, sometimes on weekends as well. She would also describe that she would have very awkward encounters with the maintenance guy. She described him to be a pushy creep, he'd always make advances at her, of which she would always reject. But sometimes with rejection, a man will get rejected, and then after a while he'll get the picture. He'll be okay, no, she's just not interested, and move on. But with this guy, he was very pushy. He would continue to make advances at her regardless of how many times he was rejected or how it is that she didn't really show much interest, but he would continuously make advances. Now, on the 24th of September, Miya had plans to go back home to visit her friends and her family. So on that day, actually, she had been at work, but she was known to be knocking off maybe roughly latest around 5 p.m. that day. And so she just had just enough time literally to like leave work, go back to her apartment to collect her bags, and then make her way to the airport. And her flight was maybe like plus minus an hour, so she wasn't that far away, but that was basically the plan that it is that she had for that day. So the time arrived when it is that Mia's flight would be leaving, or the time when she should have boarded her flight. However, at this point, she wasn't answering any texts or any calls. So her family thought, no, maybe she's just having like connectivity issues or problems with her phone, or maybe she's actually on the flight and is making her way to home. So at this point, the night is going on and the time in which Miya should have landed has passed. That flight has also landed and there is no sign of her. So obviously at this point, it's causing like serious panic for her parents. Because also it was very unusual behavior for her, because she was someone who communicated a lot or would be on her phone, or if something had happened, maybe she had missed her flight or whatever, she was the type of child to like communicate stuff like that. So at this point, her parents became very, very worried. Now, at 9:30 that evening, Mia's parents then decided to contact police officers to please go and like basically conduct a wellness check, or to go to Mia's apartment to check to see like if she was okay. At around 9:45, an officer had been dispatched and arrived shortly after 10 p.m. Upon the officer arriving at Mia's apartment, he basically knocked 3 times and there was no answer at the door. One of Mia's roommates also did show up during this time, and she had noticed that Mia's room was actually locked. Now, it is known that at the time that Miya was moving into her apartment building, her dad had actually put locks on the window, just for like extra safety and stuff like that. So at the time, now fast forward to the cops are at the apartment trying to knock, the doors locked. They then went around to the window and noticed that those locks had been broken. And upon looking through the windows, they also noticed that there was furniture that was pushed up against the door, so that the door could not be opened. Now, there was jewelry scattered all over the floor. Her luggage bag was still in her room and her pillow had blood on it. And it is when the police officers had also asked Mia's roommates whether or not she was maybe seeing someone, had a boyfriend, had a girlfriend, or just recently made any new friends, or like just basically any type of information that they could get to try understand why there's blood on the pillows, or like, because it looked like there was a bit of a struggle in the room. So obviously any type of information at this point can help solve the case. It is at this point then when Mia's roommate mentions the maintenance guy who goes by the name of Armando Calabero, and she basically like talks about how Armando had been trying to go on a date with Miya for a very, very long time. However, each and every single time, like, Mia's been refusing, and Miya had actually opened up to her roommates as well about this guy, and like how uncomfortable she's starting to feel with him and stuff like that. And she had said that there's absolutely like nothing, there's no relationship, like she's not dating him, she's not seeing him like that. Maybe they could say they're friends. I mean, they basically work together because Miya works at the same apartment building and he's the maintenance guy there, but there's absolutely nothing going on. Mia's parents and family then made their way to Orlando, where it is that Miya stayed and obviously attended school, and they arrived just before 3 a.m. And upon arrival, they bumped into the police still at Mia's apartment, basically just looking around and trying to find any clues. Mia's family, however, did find a few things that were a bit suspicious and maybe the cops had not noticed. And one of these things was that they found a box cutter under her rug, which they found to be like a little bit strange because of its positioning and also the type of thing that it is, I guess. So basically, I don't think that the family would think of Miya, I guess, to be someone who would have a box cutter. And even though, like, why is the box cutter placed under the rug? You know what I mean? There's blood on the pillow. So for them, this was something that was very, very unusual. Now, Armando, the maintenance guy, also shortly after that made his way to the apartment building. And, Mia's family basically knew about him because she had also, opened up to her family about this maintenance guy that has just been doing the most, and she's not, appreciating his advances and stuff like that. And Armando mentioned a colleague named Tarty, who the family mentioned that they don't know who that is. Nobody even knows who that is. And he's basically just coming up with excuses to like maybe cover up something, or they were basically just saying that we know who you are, we know that you've been making advances at our daughter and she hasn't been appreciative of your behavior and like the way that you have been conducting yourself and doing things. So the family was just not happy that he even came to the scene.
Tati, you keep mentioning Tati, and no one knows Tati.
You get a call
the
all of a
roommates
sudden.
don't even know Tati.
You've been sleeping since 10
keep
o'clock,
saying
and all of a
Tati is
sudden
a
you're showing
friend.
up here at 4 o'clock in the morning looking for me.
Because me and Tati were conversating about it, so I finally, it came
Okay,
up.
but
Should
Tati
I go and
is
see
someone...
if I see anything?
No one knows Tati. That's my whole thing. Not
Tati
even the
is
roommate
an
knows
employee
Tati.
here.
She's an employee, but you keep saying Tati is a friend and that you've all hung out together. As of right now, you have sent obsessive texts to Miya. We have all seen the text. You talked about giving her your life savings. You cash out her money, and you claim that you weren't in touch.
Who told her
It's
gave her
on
life
text.
savings? I never
As
said
a matter
that.
of fact, we're going to get a police report to pull your phone records if that's the case.
What you have to do?
Now, Armando had mentioned that he had last seen Miya at 3 p.m. that afternoon, just before she was to catch her flight. But he hasn't seen her since. But the police didn't really suspect him or think of him as a suspect, even after like the family had mentioned that this guy has been making advances and whatever. At the time, the police didn't really have a reason to suspect him of everything. So shortly after that, he then left the apartment building. A missing persons profile was then opened, and Mia's family just really could not like get rid of how it was or their feelings towards Armando, so they then decided to follow him in their own private car. The family then saw Armando step out with a blanket which they believed to belong to Miya, a bag as well as a glove. They then decided to contact the police. However, upon the police arriving, they couldn't conduct a search because they didn't have a warrant at the time. However, Armando then, he was like, you know what, if you guys really want to search this place, I understand the police can't do it because they don't have a search warrant, but if it'll make things better, Mia's family can come into the apartment and conduct their own search, of which they did. However, the search came out empty. They didn't really find anything. At this point, Mia's family was very, very, very frustrated, of which is very understandable because Mia's still missing. There isn't really much information that's coming to light. And the same day of that, they searched Armando's apartment at 3 p.m. that day. He then got into his car and he disappeared. Now, as I had mentioned that Armando left around 3 p.m. at 4:30 p.m., this is when a lot of concern started to really like brew within the police, because then they looked more into the interest that it is that Armando had into Miya, and at this point they were feeling a bit, or were rather suspicious of him, and this is when they then decided to put out an arrest warrant for him. And upon arriving at his apartment, obviously at that point he had left, and they didn't really find much at the apartment, nor did they find him. At this point they were just a little too late. Now, the police were able to get some record from where it is that Miya stayed. And so basically where she stayed, like when you enter into the apartment, you kind of use like a key card. And they had actually found that someone had actually accessed Mia's apartment at around 4:30 that day, while it was that she was still at work, just before she came home to fetch her bags. And it was actually a MasterCard. So basically a MasterCard is a card that you basically have access to every room. And so this card was actually linked to Armando because obviously he's the maintenance guy, so he had access to everyone's room basically. So he basically went into her room just before she got back home that day. It is at this point when the police decided to look into Armando's profile, phone records, basically anything that could help them with this case. And they had actually found out that earlier in that year, Armando was working at a different, student accommodation, basically, or a different building. And he actually had an encounter with another young woman. And so basically what happened with this young woman was that he had sent her a note and he asked to take her out on a date, of which she agreed. However, later on in that evening, he started to make contact with her and was like, no, let's see each other now and stuff like that, of which that girl was not for that. Like, if the date was on another day, she was okay with it, but why is he being so persistent to have it like right now, like tonight, And so then what basically happened later that evening while that young lady was sleeping is that a dumbbell or a weight had been thrown into her room and basically broke the window. She then contacted the police, who did come to the scene. They were not really sure who did it, or they couldn't really see anyone else there. But the young lady did mention that there was this guy, Armando, and that she was supposed to go on a date with him, and basically what happened. So then she really suspects that because he didn't take that rejection well, he might have been the one to throw in the dumbbell or the weight into her bedroom. It is also known that in the year 2013, he detonated a homemade explosive into a secondary school as a prank, but luckily no one was hurt. Now, at this point, things were taking a bit of a while. No one really still knew where Miya was or where Armando was.
What do you need? Police, fire, medical?
We found it on property. Someone hung themselves from a garage. It's a male.
Okay.
Yes, a male.
All right. He's deceased, beyond any help?
I believe so.
Okay. All right.
Now, on the 27th of September in the year 2021, news then came in that a cleaner had found an unknown male that had committed suicide in the garage. This male would then later be identified as Armando, and it is unclear as to what time he decided to take his own life. Now, because Armando had committed suicide, at this point, things would be much harder. The police would have to basically rely on CCTV footage, rely on cell phone records, basically anything that they can get their hands on. And while it was that I was researching this case, I actually bumped into like a documentary, right? And so it was actually mentioned that after Armando took his life, maybe like a day or two after that, I think on the 28th, so that'll be a day after he took his life, I'm not too sure, Mia's Facebook was actually active, and that it pinged, or rather that she with Facebook, when you get to a specific place, you can what's the word I'm looking for? You can post that you're at that specific place. You can check in, yes. So you can check into that place. So a few days after, or a day after Armando committed suicide, that's what happened on Mia's profile, of which obviously they thought and hoped that it would lead them to somewhere. However, it was just another dead end. Over the days to come, Mia's family flew in. There were multiple, volunteers as well conducting searches. And by the 30th of September, at least 30 searches were conducted. And at this point, the FBI had also gotten involved. Now, Armando's phone records showed that within that evening or the day of Mia's disappearance, it had pinged into like different counties. So he was moving around like quite a lot. It also showed that he was in a place known as Tamberscan, I hope I'm saying that right, which is known to be a very, very dangerous place with a lot of like empty buildings. It's not a place where you really go there at night. It's not known to be safe. At that place, there's also a lot of reports of drugs, violence, deaths, to the point where Google Maps won't even drive into that area to collect data. Now, on the night of Mia's disappearance, Armando's phone pinged at this specific place between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. Police also found out that he had stayed at the place before, and so he knew that area quite well. Now, on the 2nd of October 2021, police then decided to go to this area to basically go and like conduct a search and basically look into the abandoned buildings, because there were a lot of abandoned buildings in that area. Basically just look around to see if maybe they can find anything or anyone who has information on like whether or not Armando was with Miya at that time, or anything that could lead to them finding out any information about Miya's disappearance. Now, at 10:45 a.m., this is when police sadly found the body of Miya. Right next to her was her purse as well as her ID. Now, at this point, it had shown that Miya had been there for some time because of how much it is that her body had decomposed at that time. She was bound with black duct tape, found partially undressed in a bra and with a robe. She also had black duct tape covered over her mouth. Now, police do believe that Armando could have been behind Miya's murder, especially since a few days after that he decided to end his own life. Now, in this case, there was found to be a lot of negligence, and Miya's family attorney feels that where it is that they stayed at the residence, they could have done more to keep students safe. Now, at the residence, they took at least 3 days to acknowledge Miya's disappearance, and they denied having not been negligent in hiring Armando, which is a bit weird seeing as how many offenses he's committed in the past and his run-ins with the law. So it seems a bit negligent, and it seems as though maybe they didn't do enough to find out who he really was before it was that he was hired into this place. To make matters worse, he was given a key card or a MasterCard into having access like for everyone's rooms. That doesn't seem like something that is safe, especially for someone who has a history or the same history that he does. The residence also has very bad lighting as well as a limited surveillance. And shortly after the news came out about Miya's death, a protest had taken place by the residents, and they were basically just protesting for better security and safety. The residents did at no point reach out to Miya's family either to offer an apology or even to send out their condolences. And it's a bit heart-wrenching because Miya was not only a resident and stayed at the place, but she also worked for them part-time. On the 14th of October, Miya was then laid to rest. Now, Miya had obviously deserved to be safe and to feel safe. And shortly after this, Miya Marcano Foundation was opened by her family. And it's basically to support family of missing persons and advocating for students' safety. And in December 2021, Miya's autopsy results were then also released. Well, that is all I have, guys, on the Miya Marcano case. A very, very heartbreaking case. Not many answers or much to it, especially because the person who they suspect to be behind her murder also decided to commit suicide. There's a lag, I guess, with surveillance, with lighting, with so many other things. There was speculation that maybe, you know, what had happened that day was that he got into her room just before she got home. Once it is that she got home, there was a struggle. That's where basically the blood comes from the pillow and basically everything happening in the room. Some people do believe that she was probably murdered inside her room and then taken out her window or taken out through her window into his car. And that's when he went on to go and dump her body. But yeah, so I'll see you next time, guys. Please don't forget to like, to comment, and to subscribe. Bye.